Polygraph tests, forced retirements, and sudden, mysterious, unexplained absences. A wave of brand new reporting reveals that the nation's top law enforcement agency has devolved into a Lord of the Flies situation under Donald Trump. The New York Times reveals that the FBI has turned a tool normally used to root out those who may have betrayed the country against their own. Dozens of top FBI officials have reportedly been forced to take polygraph tests. Many of them have been asked, quote, whether they have said anything negative about FBI Director Kash Patel. In one instance, officials were forced to take a polygraph as the agency sought to determine who disclosed the news that Mr. Patel had demanded a service weapon, an unusual request given that he's not an agent. The FBI has declined to comment to the New York Times, but former FBI officials are speaking out. The New York Times reports this, quote, the moves, former Bureau officials say, are politically charged and highly inappropriate, underscoring what they describe as an alarming quest for fealty at the FBI, where there is little tolerance for dissent. Disparaging Mr. Patel or his deputy, Dan Bongino, former officials say, could cost people their job. One of the agents who was ordered to take a polygraph test was a guest on this program on Wednesday, Michael Feinberg. He was forced out of the FBI over his friendship with former FBI agent Pete Strzok, who has been a target of Donald Trump's now for years and years and years. In a post last week on the Lawfare blog, he writes this, quote, I would be asked to submit to a polygraph exam probing the nature of my friendship with Pete Strzok, and as I was quietly informed by another friendlier senior employee, what could only be described as a latter-day struggle session. I would be expected to grovel, beg forgiveness, and pledge loyalty as part of the FBI's cultural revolution brought about by Patel and Bongino's ascension to the highest echelons of American law enforcement and intelligence. Feinberg quit before taking that polygraph, and so have a lot of other people. According to the New York Times, quote, top agents in about 40% of the field offices have either retired, been ousted, or moved into different jobs. All of this is happening as the top brass at the FBI and DOJ are in turmoil, roiled by the implosion of one of the biggest conspiracy theories that animates MAGA these days. It has to do with the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. On that, Axios reports this, quote, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino took a day off work Friday after clashing at the White House with Attorney General Pam Bondi over their handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Bongino did not come to work on Friday, leading some insiders to believe he had quit. But administration officials say he is still on the job, even as the internal tension over the Epstein case continues. When staffers at the FBI are wondering if the Bureau's number 2 has abruptly quit, and roughly 40% of all field offices have seen major upheaval, it should come as no surprise that concerns are mounting that the FBI is wholly unprepared to handle whatever comes its way. Last month, at the height of the conflict with Iran, one former senior DOJ official told NBC News this, quote, the senior ranks of the FBI and DOJ's national security teams have been decimated. As a result, the FBI and Justice Department are completely unprepared to respond to a crisis, including the fallout from the current conflict in the Middle East. An FBI led by allies of Donald Trump in total meltdown mode, potentially at the expense of U.S. national security, is where we start today with New York Times national security reporter Adam Goldman. His byline is on that piece of reporting we read from. Also joining us, former assistant special agent in charge at the FBI, the aforementioned Michael Feinberg, is back. Adam, let me start with you and your reporting on the polygraphs. Take me inside. I mean, the polygraph is a tool used by the FBI, but not in this fashion. Just explain to us what is so abnormal about the way they're using polygraphs.
Well, I think they've been quick to use the polygraphs in ways the Bureau hasn't before. Of course, Mike Feinberg can tell you, of course, he went through a poly when he joined the Bureau, and he probably went through several 5-year polys to renew his top secret security clearance to ensure that, he was being loyal to his country. But here we have an instance where they've deployed the poly to sort of suss out whether people are are gossiping essentially about what's going on in the FBI, about HR moves, right? And about Cash wanting a gun when he's not an agent. And, we have been told dozens of people have been polyed. And this is really stoking a culture of fear and intimidation in the Bureau in ways that, I haven't seen before. And by the way, normally, I think there were people who wouldn't talk to me, but because of what is happening, they feel the need to reach out, which for me is an extraordinary thing.
Say more about that, Adam.
I think people are very concerned about the future of the FBI, where it's headed, and moves that are going on inside. And, these people traditionally are not media friendly. They're taught not to. Well, first of all, you're taught not to be media friendly at the FBI. So, for them to reach out and talk to me is unusual. And I think underscores the alarm inside the Bureau's halls. And I will note that the turnover you referenced, about 40%. I started keeping a spreadsheet of the top at every field office, the 55 field offices. I recorded the names of who was in charge before January 20th, anticipating they were going to do exactly what they said they were going to do, and they have.
Michael, jump in on this and remind us the circumstances around which you were going to be subjected to polygraph that had nothing to do with your renewal of security clearances.
No, I was not due for a security clearance renewal for quite some time. And I was never, at any point in the past few months, actually at any point in my entire career, ever accused of violating a policy or procedure, creating some sort of investigative deficiency, or even transgressing against some sort of internal FBI cultural norm. The sole reason I was going to be subjected to a polygraph test was that I'm a social acquaintance, a friend of Pete Strzok, who, as we all know, this administration considers a political enemy.
Michael, talk about what it does to the culture to start polygraphing senior members of the workforce and senior leaders of field offices out of suspicion of unflattering and, I guess in the case of the gun, true news accounts.
Mm-hmm. It creates a culture that fundamentally undermines the ability of the FBI to do its own job. We are working in very controversial, dangerous, and fast-moving situations, whether you're on the criminal enforcement side of the house or whether you're dealing with national security threats. And in order to do that, you have to be able to trust that you can have candid conversations with your bosses, including individuals like Bongino and Patel, and you have to have a certain amount of comfort that they trust you too. If you are going to bring them bad news, if you're going to bring them hard facts, you need to know that they're going to listen. And if somebody is polygraphing you because of suspected political transgressions or because you've made fun of them, which, by the way, is not against an FBI policy, the communication is going to naturally be stymied, and facts that management needs to hear are going to fall through the cracks.
I mean, let me just play some of Dan Bongino as a podcaster, because I imagine the universe of people who've made fun of some of the things these guys said in their past life is massive. Let me just play this. People can decide for themselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, the FBI is an absolute disaster. It is an abomination to the country. The corruption needs to be immediately defunded. The FBI should no longer exist as it's constituted now. The mission should be divvied up. The money should be divvied up amongst other agencies that take their oath to the country seriously. We fire everyone who stood by. We don't just fire the people who did this. Everyone who stood by and did nothing. While the Department of Justice and the FBI have been ravaged by corruptocrats, everyone gets fired. Everyone. If you stood by and did nothing. That's how. Can
I hit pause at this point and say, is there anyone at the FBI that wouldn't feel proud about their agency and be offended by a guy who craps all over the Bureau and its legacy and its mission and its fealty to the country? I mean, I'm not even sure I understand what the polygraph is meant to suss out, Adam Goldman.
It appears that the polygraph is meant to suss out who might be talking about, internal discussions. And I would note these discussions aren't even related to national security information, right, or classified information, right? So they're taking aggressive steps in matters that don't even affect national security. The one thing that's also happening, I think Mike could be a possible victim of this, is a snitching culture, right? That somebody went to the seventh floor of the FBI, maybe Bongino, and said Mike is friends with Pete Strzok. And it's happened. This is not the only case this has happened, right? And so, being able to have frank discussions, but you're worried about people literally snitching inside the FBI. I think that's deeply alarming to people. And it's not clear where it's going. You talked about, you just aired what those corrosive comments that Bongino has made about the FBI, but Bongino spent years eroding trust in the FBI, years, right? Giving his listeners what they wanted and eroding trust, the public's trust in the FBI. And now he's back, and he wants us to believe, or he wants the public to believe, that they're there, that this corruption is gone. And I think it's done significant harm to the Bureau's reputation and the way people perceive the Bureau